Hello, and welcome to How to Apply to LSMSA. My name is Michael Sumner, and I'm the Assistant Director of Enrollment Services here at the Louisiana School. So what I'm going to do tonight is host a Zoom call where I'm going to go over all of the little steps that are involved in the application process. Right from the beginning with creating an account, all the way through to the end of submitting all of your individual documents, the application packet, and recommendation letters. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them directly to us. During tonight's Zoom call, I'm actually going to be taking questions as they come, and I'll answer those at the end. But if you don't hear anything that you want answered in this video, always feel free to contact us. I'll have my contact information here below, and I'll be happy to get back with you via phone call or email to answer any specific questions that you have. So we're going to go ahead and get this started. I'm going to grab a seat and share my screen, and let's begin. So what I have pulled up here is the Louisiana Schools homepage. And anytime you go to this, if you hover over the word admissions, you'll see a lot of different things about our department. So I'm going to go to the How to Apply section. But just so you know, there are a lot of other really great things that are available in here. If you go to the Discover LSMSA, you'll see we've got our video series, LSMSA in 5 minutes or less, that we've been producing. You can learn how to schedule visits, learn about some more of these meetings and different opportunities that we have. So all of this stuff is going to be available in there. But we're just going to focus on how to apply. And you'll notice from any of these tabs, you could click the Apply Now button. So I'm going to start by clicking Apply Now. And the first time I go through this, I'm mostly just going to be talking about for new families. So if I have anybody, I know I saw at least one or two people in the chat tonight who have students who have already come through here. If you have any questions about that, we can kind of touch on it, but I'm mostly focused on families who are going to be new to this application system. So in that event, I'm going to create an account. So I'm going to click here on Create Account. You notice it already had mine pulled up. And the biggest thing we want you to be aware of is when you start, you're filling out the candidate's information, but the actual account holder, you can see here in the middle of the screen, that's going to be the adult, and that's going to be who this account is. So, students right now, you don't get your own account. Everything is done through your parents. It's sort of a helpful tool for us to process, parental consent that you're allowing them to apply. And parents, you don't really want your student to know the login information, because the purpose of that information is once their student is accepted, we'll give them their own account and we'll link it to your existing account. And that's how you're going to be able to do some parental permissions. You're going to be able to go in there and say certain things that your student can or can't do. So you want to make sure that you're aware of your account information, and you don't really want to share that with your child. So I'm going to apply student names. It's going to be as if they were my child. So my son's name is Ace, and his last name is Eagle. That is our mascot, Ace the Eagle. My candidate doesn't have a preferred name. I'm going to leave that spot blank. And I researched for this earlier today and realized that most of our applicants are going to be born around the year 2005, which is the year that I came here, and that hurt a little bit. So just so you know where I'm at right now. The entering year for everybody should be 21, 22. If you think that's wrong for any reason, let us know and we can talk about things. And my student's coming as a new sophomore. We have a lot of students who come as new juniors, and every year we have a few new seniors, but the bulk of our applicants do apply as sophomores. So now I'm going to put in my own name. So I'm going to go with my own first name. You give myself a cool new last name. And we'll say that my email is michaeleagle@lsmsa.edu. And so this student is directly related to me. I'm the parent. And so notice this screen, it's going to ask you if you choose your username or email. So you can put your email address, but if you have a username that you're more comfortable using, you can do that as well. So I'm going to put Michael Eagle, which is one of our more common username settings. And then I'm not a robot. Hopefully I'm not a robot. Good. I was really worried I was going to have to do one of those tests where I have to click on pictures. It does make me nervous every time. So feel free to go through and look at the terms of use and privacy. For the sake of speed, we're just going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to create my account. Now you'll notice that it's going to ask me to go to my email address and confirm that this account is mine and this email account is mine. For the sake of brevity, Miss Shoemate is actually behind the scenes right now. She's kind of pushing through my account just because, if I actually send an email to myself, I have a lot of student information and emails back and forth with students that I don't want to share. So Miss Emily is going to go ahead and approve my account for me. So I'm going to go back to the login screen. She lets me know that I'm done. So what most people will see is once you've done that, you go to the email. That's how you'll confirm your account and be able to set up a password. Ms. Human and I have already discussed what I'm going to be doing. So again, my name is Michael Eagle. And my password is so that was set up with a temporary password Ms. Emily and I had discussed beforehand. And if you ever get locked out of your account, you're going to follow this exact same process. I'm going to give you a temporary password. Most often it's going to be the word Eagles because it's easy and it's our mascot. So I'm going to punch that back in to confirm. And now I'm going to pick a new password. The system will tell you you have to do certain things. I believe you have to have at least one capital letter and one number, and it has to be at least 8 characters. So I'm going to pick that as my new password. Don't remember that. And I'm in the system. So whenever you log in for the first time, it's going to take you directly to the student application. So we can see here, if you look at the top right corner, you'll see my username. I'm Michael Eagle. That's who I signed in as. But my student information is here in the top left. So I'm doing ACE's application. All right. So we give you a quick introduction, and I'm not going to fill out all of this information, but just so you can kind of see it. So you go by, and stuff that we've already filled in is already going to be logged in. So the student's name is Ace, Eagle. And then you'll go through here and you'll enter in all of the information that you need. We do ask that you notice all the information needs to be consistent with what's on a birth certificate. So some of our students have different names, and we can work on putting those into the system. But for application purposes and for legal purposes, we need to know all of your legal information. So as you'll go through that, you'll notice most of this is going to be pretty basic. Your address, city, state. The biggest question I get is very often we'll have families who are maybe coming with a military background, and they're going to be moving to one of the local military bases here in town. If that's the case, I would say always, for right now, put the information where we can actually reach you. And then once you have moved, if you're moving to Fort Polk in Leesville or Barksdale up in Shreveport, let us know whenever your address changes, and we can change that in the system. But we want to be able to know how to get in touch with you. So put your accurate, up-to-date information. And if you move, it's a really simple process for us to go in and fix it. Most of this stuff is going to be pretty self-explanatory. If you upload a photo, whenever you do your application, which we do ask that you do, it helps us put faces to names, and it gets us to knowing people a little bit better by the time you get here. Put one that is just of you. If we have group pictures, I mean, that's great. There's nothing wrong with it, but we don't really know who we're looking for. So we ask, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. We're not asking for like passport photos with a white background. And feel free to put something from, a time that you really enjoyed, but do put something that's just you and something that's at least relatively recent. To save us a little bit of trouble, I'm going to back out of this for a minute. So I'm going to go to, let's go back to the school's webpage, and you'll notice, actually, that was what I wanted to show you. So you'll notice right now in the application portal, all it shows me is the application that I'm working on. Give me a second to get it pulled back up. All right. All it shows me is the application. Once I have a checklist that gets approved, and that just happens, so if you start an application at 8 o'clock at night, we're not going to see it until the next morning. So sometimes it'll take us a couple of days to get in and process the fact that you've started. And so you'll just see this screen, and that'll allow you to hop back into the application. So I'm going to leave there for a second. And by the time I click back into that, Miss Emily will have actually approved my checklist. And then we're going to see all of the different stuff. And I'm going to take you through a lot of the different parts of the application portal. So I want to go back into my LSMSA, and you'll notice it's always at the top of that screen there. If you're looking for it, you can just go to lsmsa.edu, and there's a button at the top. And now that I've logged back in, it's going to show me this information. But this is what you really want to know. So here is ACE's checklist. So I can continue working on the application, or I can start submitting some of these other pieces. We're going to go through all of this. I want to start by getting back into the application because that's the body of what we're doing here today. But I am going to show you a lot of these other pieces really quickly as well. So I want to continue the application. And specifically, I want to draw your attention to a few different parts of this. So the family info, the school info, all of that should be fairly basic. Fill it in. Be mindful of things like we're going to ask you what grade will you enter in the fall of 21. A lot of times people don't notice that, and they'll just think, what grade are you in? Read all the questions carefully. Make sure you're entering accurate information. We can change it, but sometimes it can be really difficult in the system, working with it. So it's best for everybody if the first time you go through this, you're really paying attention to what you're doing. Specifically, what I want to show you right now are the applicant questions. So you'll notice that we have a handful of questions for you to answer. These should all be answered by the student. And you'll notice you have a character limit of about 4,000 words, which is still quite a bit of space to write what you need to. I tell people all the time, when you do this section, take your time and make sure to answer thoroughly. We don't need an essay for every single question, but you do want to do more than just, so the first question is who or what influenced your decision to apply? If, a lot of times I'll have people say, my parents influenced me because they showed me the school. Well, that's great, but is there more to it? You know, after their influence, did you get excited about the school? Did you maybe do some research and you just thought, oh, I really like what the school has to offer, and that was part of that influence as well? You know, give me a little bit of context to all of your answers. Let's skip around a little bit. Do you believe that you're ready to live away from home? What experiences best prepared you for this? Again, if you said, I do think I'm ready because I've been to a lot of summer camps, that's not a bad answer per se, right? You've answered the question. You've given me everything we've asked for. But what are other details can you tell me about this? You know, at first when I went to camp, I was really nervous, but I learned how to take care of myself. I learned how to keep my spaces tidy. You know, I learned how to wake up in the morning. Some people will say, you know, I do a lot of traveling by myself. Well, what specifically about that makes you think that you're ready to live away from home all the time instead of just going on a 1 or 2 week vacation? So just give us a little bit of information to kind of help us understand what you're doing. One thing I do want to kind of point out is, so you see, we can see all of these questions and we don't have to finish them right now. We can go into different sections. We can go forward and backward. So if you want to, one thing that I've noticed, and I can kind of tell whenever I'm reading the applications, is if you want to just write these questions down and then work on them in a Word document or in Google Docs, somewhere where you're more comfortable, that's totally okay. Just keep track. You know, again, you can see that there's a character limit. So a lot of times I'll have people who will go into a Google Doc and they'll type out their whole answer and they'll give me this great thoughtful thing, but it's too long and they're not paying attention, and then they paste it into that field. And so then the story that they're telling me cuts off in the middle. So just kind of be mindful that you are going to be limited in your character count. All of, you know, Word documents, Google Docs, those things will help you count those characters to help you keep track of that. You can do it right here in the application. I'm not a big fan of how short the space is, but you'll notice that you can drag it out, or you can make it plenty big, and then you can give yourself more room to kind of see what you're typing as you type. So those are just some kind of different helpful pointers. As you go through this, you don't have to complete the application the second you log in. You can come back to it. And then for parent questions, again, these are going to be answered from the parent's perspective. And we just like to get to know your student a little bit. You know, a lot of times parents are going to feel like you know your student better than they know themselves. And so just having a little bit more background on the student, getting another perspective writing the application is really helpful for us. If you do a bad job on this, we're not going to judge your student really harshly for that. So don't think that you have to come through and wow us. We really just want to get your honest opinion. You know, do you think your student's ready? What do you think has helped them be ready? Just give us your honest opinions. Don't feel like you need to really impress with what you're writing. So again, you can do these kind of at your own speed. We do recommend that you get the application packet, the questionnaire, done as soon as you can. It's not necessarily a race, but a lot of times it'll kind of fall through the cracks or people will forget it. Especially as we get later into the application process, if we do end up having a waiting list or people are kind of fighting for spots, one of the things we look at first is, you know, who's been in the system the longest. You know, who do we want to kind of look at for some of that? And so it's really helpful if you're already in the system, if you've knocked some of that stuff out, and then we can give you guidance throughout the year. So definitely, you know, as you feel ready for this, get it all submitted. You don't have to turn everything in at the same time. So you don't have to complete this and the ACT and your grades and those things can be turned in at different times. Don't feel like you need to turn them in all at once. Once you've completed everything, it'll take you to the signature line. You just go ahead and sign it, put whatever the date is, and then once you've submitted it, it'll take you to the confirmation page and you just confirm. That's going to be really simple. So now we're going to go back to the checklist itself. So that's the first part. Whenever you're done, you'll notice it'll say that it's been completed. As things are received by our office, this checklist will turn different colors, so you'll get a chance to see some of that. The first thing we're going to do now is look through submitting different pieces of paper, right? Submitting your paperwork. So we'll start off with an ACT or SAT score. And again, if you've watched our other videos, you know you can also submit CLTs. If you don't have access to any of these things, there are different things you can do. I encourage you to watch the video series that we've been producing to sort of see some of the other information you can do. But I'm going to upload an ACT score. So I have a file on my computer. So I'm going to go pull it out. And so what we have is it's actually a file that we got off of the ACT's website. I'm not sharing anyone's information, but I've got it right here in my how to apply documents. I've got a sample ACT. So I'm going to upload this file into the system. Can't see my button. All right. Boom, sample ACT. If you accidentally click the wrong file, not a problem. Just go ahead and delete it. But I'm going to save that. So you'll see that right now it shows as completed. If I want to go print it out, I can click this button here and get a copy of what was submitted. And I can see it again. There's all my information. That looks right. That was what I submitted. So I'm good to go there. Sorry, let me move my screen around. All right. So I'm good to go. So I know it's done. I want to also submit my transcript. So once again, I've already got a copy of this. I'm going to go browse from my computer. And I've got my transcript. So I'm going to submit that and save it. So as you go through these things, you'll notice that they'll show as completed. While I'm talking about transcripts, so you'll see that there's a spot for transcript and a spot for current year grades. And those are two separate things. Transcripts will apply to anybody who's applying who has already completed high school credits. So some of you out there in 8th grade, you might have had access to Algebra 1 or English 1. If you've done certain camps that give you credit for high school classes over the summer, those things will already be on your transcript. So we want to see those because we need to know that you have those logged, right? So if you show us that you're in geometry, but we don't see that you're in Algebra 1, that can create some difficulties for us. So school transcript is going to be anything that you already have. Most schools and most school systems in Louisiana have online portals where you can go download a PDF of your transcript. If they don't have that for whatever reason, you can ask your guidance counselor to print one out. For review purposes, we do not need an official transcript, right? We don't need something that's like signed and sealed and all that good stuff. For our review purposes, a picture, a scan, an email from your counselor, all of those will suffice. It doesn't have to be really high end. If you're accepted, we're going to get the official documents. So rather than hit your counselor twice for that kind of stuff, the first time, if you can do it on your own, that's going to be great. The other thing about transcripts is if you do submit your own, if you do take a picture or scan, you need to make sure that we can see your name and your information, and we need to see the classes that you took and the grades. Right? So a lot of times someone will send us a picture and I can see the classes that were taken and the grades, but there's no name visible. And while we would hope that, you know, y'all are all great students who would not try to cheat your way around the system and send us someone else's grades, we still need to go ahead and get the official paperwork and see that it is your information. So if you send a picture, if you do anything like that, please make sure that what you're sending us has all of your information visible in one page. You notice that current year grades is different, and I don't have one of these to upload. Do you know why? Because nobody should have current grades yet. What we ask for current grades are grades from the current school year halfway through the semester, or halfway through the school year, I should say. So you shouldn't have access to those grades until late December or early January, because you shouldn't finish with your first semester until late December or early January. So we do not want current year grades until you've already gotten grades in for this semester. So if you get your first 9 weeks grades and you submit them, I will hit the delete button. Just so you know, they're going to disappear. I'll write you an email and explain it. But if you send us current year grades before you get your grades over winter break, I'm going to delete them. We want to know, what are you doing this year? That's especially important for people who are currently 9th graders, because for a lot of you, this will be your only grades. And so if you started off fairly well and then you really tanked in the second semester, that's going to be more of a cause for alarm. So we want to see that whole, second 9 weeks. We want to see that whole semester whenever we're evaluating applications. The LEAP and EOC scores, those can be anything that you've already earned. If you are on a block schedule and you want to wait until the winter, because if you're in Algebra 1 on a block schedule, you'll take the LEAP 2025 in December, so you can submit those then. If you are a private school student, or if you've just moved here out of state and you don't have anything that fits that, I tell a lot of private school students tend to take like the pre-ACT or the ACT plan. We can substitute those, or I can waive that requirement. The LEAP and EOC scores are really just to help us if your ACT score maybe isn't as strong as you had hoped for. but your LEAP and EOC results are really strong. That shows us that you might not be ready for that college test, but whenever you've learned the material, you do really well. So that's why we ask for those. Okay. To get into the recommendations, this is one area where people tend to hesitate and get a little bit confused. So you'll notice it says start, but start does not mean that you are writing your own recommendation. So I'm going to click on this one for an English teacher, and it's going to pull up a dialog box. And this dialog box is going to ask for my teacher's name. So I'm going to have Miss Emily Shoemate write my recommendation. I'm going to put her email address in there. So that's eshoemate@lsmsa.edu. And this spot is just for if you want to say anything, right? So I'll tell you right now, we're going to have a more thorough video on this next week, but I really recommend just kind of learning professionalism to go tell your teachers. So don't just send them these emails, but in an ideal scenario, before I sent this email, I would go up to Ms. Shoemate maybe after class and say, hey, Ms. Shoemate, I'm applying for the Louisiana school, and one of the requirements is an English teacher recommendation. Is it okay if I send you this link? And hopefully she'll say yes. And so I say, awesome, thank you so much. Look for it in your email inbox tonight. And so once you've done that, I would maybe come in here and say, thank you again. I really appreciate it. Just let the people know that are going out of their way to do this kind of stuff for you that you're thankful. Little touches might put them in a better mood as they fill out your request. And then you send it. So you'll see that now it shows that my request has been sent. And from there, it's out of your hands. You don't need to do anything else. Ms. Shoemate is going to receive an email that says, Ace Eagle has requested a recommendation letter. It'll have a link for her to click on, and it'll take her all the way through the process. And so she'll be able to go in and say, it has a bunch of questions, you know, identify yourself, identify the student you're recommending, and then we ask them to kind of tell us a little bit more about you. So that's the English teacher recommendation. All of these follow the same process. Again, stuff that we'll go into more detail about, and we have talked about in other videos. Your English and math teacher should either be from this year or last year. So again, I understand some of you are on block schedule, some of you are online this semester, and maybe you don't feel like you know your teacher really well, but your last year teacher you had a good relationship with. So those two recommendations can be from this year or last year. Your guidance counselor recommendation, that should be from whoever is the administrator at your current school. So that can be a principal, vice principal. Some schools will have things like assistant deans, assistant principals. They have different kind of hierarchies, but they're in your school's administration. And what I tell people are the English teacher, math teacher, and optional recommendations. Those are real recommendations, right? That's them telling us about their relationship with you and what kind of person, what kind of student you are. The admin recommendation, parents out there will understand this reference really well. That's like a background check, right? If I was applying for a job, it's like a background check. So they don't necessarily it doesn't need to come from someone who knows me really well. What it needs to do is have somebody who's got access to my disciplinary record, my attendance record, you know, things like that. So if they can say, well, you know, it turns out Ace has missed a lot of class. He's had a lot of unexcused absences. That's not a good sign for how they'll do here. Or Ace has gotten into a couple of fights. Ace has had altercation with the teachers, a lot of disrespect. Because then I'm going to ask Ace about that whenever we get to his interview. I'm going to say, tell me why I'm hearing a lot of stuff on your disciplinary record. So we are going to go into all of that. So that's going to be the purpose of a guidance counselor or school administrator recommendation. You'll see at the bottom of the checklist, there are a couple of things. The applicant photo, if you submitted one with your application, it'll already be in there. I'll just mark it as completed. Or if you want to submit another photo, you don't like the photo, and you know, students especially, if your mom or dad put in a photo that you don't like and you want to change it, that's going to be a spot where you can do it. You can pick your photo for that spot, and you can put that in there. And then you'll see we have a tour. If you aren't able to come in for a tour, that's fine. We'll waive it. We do still really like for people to be able to come in, but we understand this year especially is different than most. Whenever you come in for a tour, hopefully I'll mark it. That's one of the things that I am bad about forgetting. So you can always just tell me and I'll go in and mark it as completed. Just if you're someone like me who likes to see all of your check marks done, I understand that. Let me refresh my screen really quickly. So you'll see here, I thought I could hear Ms. Shoemate typing in the other room. Ms. Shoemate has completed my recommendation letter. So I sent it, she got it right away. She did all the steps that she needed to, and it came into our system. and now it is marked as completed. So you can see I've got my little blue check mark right here, and it shows as completed, so I know it's been done. If I would have refreshed this a little sooner, it would have said that she started it or she's seen it. But that's going to be kind of your guide for seeing your checklist. One thing I do want to point out is, let's say I sent my guidance counselor one. So I'm just going to do this really quickly. Ms. Shoemate, I'm going to use you again, but please do not fill this one out. Less professional. All right, and then also if you want to see it, you can see this is how the email is going to send. So back to my request form, I'm going to send that one as well. All right, so let's say it's been a month and Ms. Shoemate has not gotten around to it. I've kind of touched on it once or twice. Ms. Shoemate, it would be really helpful. One thing that you can do is ask us to help you. So you can email me, say, hey, Mr. Sumner, I asked my counselor a while back and she hasn't done it, and I don't want to be like rude. I don't want to keep asking her, but I don't know what to do. Well, let me know and I'll email them. And a lot of times having it come from the school instead of a student, sometimes that'll put a little extra motivation. Sometimes things slip their minds. School administrators are incredibly busy. I worked at a public school for a few years, and I have so much more respect now for, just everyone involved in education. It's really, really tough. But all that being said, let's say that it's still not getting done. So I can go back in here and I can click on this one again. And now you'll see I have the option to resend request. So if I click on that, it doesn't just have to go to Ms. Shoemate again, right? And it could be that maybe she's just not getting the email. Maybe the web filter was blocking it. So instead of sending it to her school address, she gave me her personal email address and I'll send it there. Or Ms. Shoemate just really hasn't been responsive. She doesn't seem to want to do it. So I'm going to send it to someone else this time. And now I'm right back to that main dialog box. So this time, instead of sending it to her, I'm going to send it to Mr. Sumner. He seems much more helpful. So I'll put his information in there. And again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I can send that request. And now it's been sent to somebody else. And when you do that, if you do that on a different day than your original request, you'll notice that the date will change to say that you've resent the request and now that's what's pending. So that is the application checklist in a nutshell. If you notice, most of these other tabs, these are things that you won't really have a whole lot to see, but just to kind of let you know that they are there. Some other things to be aware of inside of the application portal is in the top right corner next to the parent's name, you'll see messages. So sometimes we'll send you messages here. I tend to, especially if you submitted something that came in incorrectly, a lot of times I might send you a message here, and I'll usually email you as well. But this is just kind of convenient in the system. It's set up to where I can send that, and it helps kind of speed that process along some. Let me move my, oh, that's what I can do. All right. Some other things to be aware of in the system. First of all, for parents who have maybe more than one student, you'll notice on the other side, you can apply another child. So if you have twins, if you have students who are different ages but applying at the same time, this is the system that you'll use, and you'll kind of fill out that same process. You'll go through and you'll fill out the candidate's first name, last name, if they have a nickname, their date of birth. You'll kind of go through all of that and verify, and that way this will link the candidate. So just for the sake of kind of showing you, let's say this candidate's name is Deuce Eagle, because I'm not a creative parent, and it's a twin. Really sounds like I'm playing favorites if I name one Ace and one Deuce. Also 10th grade, I verify I'm the parent and begin. And so now you'll notice, parents, the top of your screen has changed, and now it doesn't just say Ace, it says Ace or Deuce. And so now I go through the same process with Deuce. Right now all I have is the application. If Ms. Shoemate goes through and processes it, which I want to ask her to do because we're going to have to delete Ace and Deuce later, then the rest of the checklist will fill out, and you'll go through that same exact process. If any of that's not working for you, parents, if you're having any trouble, any issues, let me know. Sometimes some weird things will have been created. Sometimes people who have been in the system for a long time. So maybe if you came to a summer camp, you're already in the system and you can't figure out how to access your account. Happens all the time. Just email us and let us know. You can phone call, and we'll kind of help you get back into your account and get the account running again. All right, so we had a few notes that we wanted to touch on from things that happened during this meeting. The first one is we want to make sure that whenever you're completing the application, Don't take any shortcuts. One of the things that we see really often is that somebody who's completing the application will only do part of, let's say, the family information. So maybe if you live in a split household and the two parents have different addresses, and so maybe they'll only put one parent's information in, well, then it's going to make things a little bit more difficult on the back end. So don't take any shortcuts. We ask for things like the student's mailing address and the student's cell phone. If you put in your contact information as a parent, we're going to have to go in eventually and fix that. So it'll be easier if whenever you are completing that information, you complete it accurately. If you don't have a home line, don't put anything in as the home line, just put your cell phone number. And that'll help make our contacting a little bit easier, if your student's accepted down the line and we need to contact you, if we don't have to go back in and change any of that. For the test scorecard, so for LEAP and EOC submissions, the easiest way to submit something and the best way for us to get a complete picture of the student is if you submit what's called a test scorecard. A lot of systems in the state of Louisiana will have those available for you, where if you go into the system, most schools have an online, something you can access through the school board, through a website, and a lot of them will have a test scorecard that you can pull. So if you can get access to that, it's going to give us a complete history of your test, and that's going to give us a really great picture of your background. If for some reason that doesn't work and all you can do is get individual files from sort of recent tests and you can't figure out how to get those into one, you can submit those all to us via email and we can upload them into the system for you. The same goes for if you take the ACT a second time and you no longer have a spot to upload that, but you want us to know your new higher scores, email any of that information to us and we can take care of putting that in on the back end. We got a few questions about ACT versus SAT throughout the meeting tonight, and we answered those in text form. But if you go watch this video, we actually go into a lot of detail about what we're looking for whenever we're doing those tests. And so that'll give you a little bit more background about what we're looking for and kind of answer some questions for you. Then we've also got this one here, if just a general informational session. So if you want to go back and learn a little bit more, that's going to be a great way to do it. Or you can check out our video series, LSMSA in 5 minutes or less, which we update every week on Thursday. If you have any questions, again, please feel free to contact us. We look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.